All right, Teresa, thank you. Welcome back to True Hope Cast. I hope you're doing well. What's going on? How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me back. I'm really excited to chat with you again about all things sleep and anything else, really.
Yeah, sleep is obviously a huge part of everybody's life. You can't live without it. There's no question about that. And yeah, we were just talking off air before I hit record here about um, New Year's resolutions and self commitments and things like that. And I think probably everybody could benefit from giving a little bit more love to our sleep habits, our sleep hygiene, etc. So we'll get into that. You know, it's going to be a new year pretty soon here, but just for people who don't know who you are, people who have not listened to that episode beforehand, can you just let us know who you are and what it is that you do, please?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Teresa. I am board certified in clinical sleep health, and I'm the founder of Better NYC. My team focuses on sleep coaching, which for us is kind of an all-encompassing term for educating and supporting people with their sleep health. So that could mean, just sharing accurate information online, via social media or podcasts, for example. It means providing affordable online programs so that people can help themselves. It also means specifically for us to help coordinate testing and treatment for people who have sleep disorders. And we know that everybody sleeps, but we don't all do it well. And a lot of us don't really know where to start. Maybe we're not getting the help we want from our healthcare system. So that's what I do. And that's what we do at Better NYC.
How did you get into doing that?
That's a great question. I have been in medical and dental sales and consulting since before I graduated college, actually. So about 15 years. So do the math on that. And I've been in sleep, the industry of sleep, if you will, for just the last maybe 5 or so years. But as soon as I started working with clinicians who were helping people with their sleep, I mean, something clicked automatically. I became completely obsessed. A few years ago, I got my own clinical credential, and I have not stopped since. Again, I just felt like every time I started telling everybody like what I was doing in this new job I had a few years ago, it was like everybody wanted to talk about it. Everybody has a problem with sleep, or their brother does, or their husband does, or their sister does. And it's just so common. And there's just so much crazy stuff out there. I was like, I have to help, like, kind of gather it all up for people and help them understand what's real and what's not and where to go for more support. So that's where I started.
Cool. You just touched on like sleep guidance. We obviously have like food guidance from the government, and we probably have, I don't know, like there's probably a page on the FDA or Health Canada or whatever it is about like advice on sleep, which would obviously be super broad because they're trying to give advice to millions and millions of people, right? And we're also an individual with different jobs and different responsibilities and different biology. So is there like, what's the guidelines like for that? Are they good? Are they bad? Like, what would you say?
You know what? They're not awful, and they're definitely improving. Like you said, they do have to be, purposely vague because everybody has different, medical conditions and lifestyle, and some people work nights. And so, you don't necessarily want to say like you have to sleep between this time and that time. But for adults, generally, 7 to 9 hours is recommended, and it is proven over and over again in the research. We do have the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, the AASM. So, they have some guidelines, and also the, I might mess up the association here, so don't kill me, but like the American Heart Association, I believe, just updated their guidelines even to include sleep. So it used to be like the healthy 7 things that you had to do, including nutrition and exercise. They included sleep as something you absolutely need to take care of for cardiovascular health.
Awesome. And are there any like big sleep myths out there that we need to just like get clear on before we kind of go forward?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of sleep myths. I think specifically because I did just say that 7 to 9 hours thing, I will mention that 8 hours is like always talked about. It's not arbitrary, but it was really just picked because it's in between 7 and 9. Personally, I get about 7.5 hours of sleep. If you sleep more or less, you're probably fine. A lot of it is very subjective. And as we age too, we do tend to need a little bit less sleep. Now, I'm not saying that we need 4 hours of sleep. It is incredibly unlikely that you are a person who can function optimally on 4 hours of sleep or even 5 hours of sleep. But about 6.5 hours as you get older is also very normal. So I like to remind people of that, because especially if you are someone who's starting to work on your sleep health, you don't want to sort of, add pressure and get anxiety over, oh my God, I'm not getting that 8 hours of sleep, because, maybe you don't need it.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty solid advice. I think, I'd love to talk about like the new year, new habits, commitments and all this. And, most people will focus on like, hitting the gym more, eating less kind of junky food, maybe cooking at home more.
Mm-hmm.
But sleeping more, sleeping better isn't usually one of those commitments, because obviously we like to commit to things that we can like actively go out and do, like a behavior. Obviously trying to sleep better is certainly a behavior, but it's not like one of those active ones that you would associate with like a New Year's resolution, for example. So how and why should we really be like resetting poor sleep habits for the new year? I mean, the new year is just like a timestamp, right? But like, why is it a good thing to start resetting poor sleep habits at any time?
Great question. You're right. It's like, we know it's all made up and it's just like a societal thing, but we still all do it. We're still reflecting now. We're still thinking about next year. So I think that if you have any plans for improvement in your life at all, sleep health really needs to be prioritized, or at least part of that plan. Sleep isn't just for rest, and it doesn't just make us feel a little better. It's not just something that prevents kids from having a meltdown. It affects all physiological processes down to the cellular level. So if you want to do something that is more active, maybe it is something like, okay, if you're snoring, maybe you see a doctor about it, or maybe you talk to a sleep coach, or you go to my Instagram and learn about it. But if you have a goal, for example, to lose weight, good quality sleep can help that. And I'm not just trying to sell you on it. There are studies that prove that good quality sleep helps you to lose more fat and gain more muscle. It helps you to rebuild muscle. Untreated sleep disorders are often related to obesity, and that's not a coincidence. If one of your goals is like a promotion at work, or you're trying to land a really big deal, good quality sleep can help you do that, because it can help you focus. It actually helps the logical part of your brain have a little bit more control than the emotional part of your brain. So, you really want all that working if you're trying to land that big deal, if you have a big meeting coming up. So it might feel like just, something extra, maybe you'll get around to it, maybe you'll focus on it. But, if you tie it into your other goals, it does help you, I think, prioritize it a little bit more.
Yeah, I think the research is pretty set in regards to having decent quality sleep on a regular basis is only going to improve health in so many different aspects, right? We've got associations talking about sleep. We have so many neurological conditions set talking about sleep as well. So it's obviously such a huge topic, and we can't, we can go without air for, like minutes. We can go without water for a few days. We can go without food for probably a few weeks. But like sleep, like, I don't think that there's anybody that's been like awake for more than like a few days before they start hallucinating, going delirious, and all these things. So it's quite simply a huge foundational thing that we all need. But it's interesting that our bodies can put up with like decades of like poor sleep habits, poor nutrition habits, poor hydration habits, poor exercise regimes. We can just like, the body does amazing things to put up with like all of those lacks. But it's a fundamental, necessary ingredient to like a good quality life, right?
Yeah, I mean, I always say, and obviously ask any parent, they've gone days or weeks or months or years even being sleep deprived. Like, the human body and the brain is so resilient. And on one hand, that's really great. But on the other hand, we develop this very low bar. And so often, almost every person that I've coached live, I feel like will say, I didn't even realize how bad I was feeling until I started feeling better. Just like, if you find out you have a food allergy, for example, and you've been eating this food your whole life, and then suddenly you cut it out, you start to realize that you had all these other symptoms and you didn't even know it was related. And the same goes for sleep. If you have been not sleeping well, you've been snoring, you have an untreated disorder, and then suddenly you do start getting help, it's like you suddenly realize that maybe you're not so moody, and maybe your stomach doesn't hurt all the time. Maybe you're not so forgetful. It was just that you were lacking the sleep you needed.
Tell me about some of the parents you've worked with, because I've got 2 young kids and I kind of figured it out, my own sleep thing, maybe a year and a half into being a dad. And it's basically like, I have to just like sacrifice some of the stuff that I would used to do in the evenings. Like I can't go and train and play soccer 3 times a week in the evening. It's just not possible. I can't do that. And I can't stay up watching TV till 10, 11 o'clock at night. So I just have to just like, for me, it was just like sacrificing. But I had to figure that out. So like there's one day a week where I will probably need to go to bed at 7:30 with the kids, especially in the winter. Like, so I put one of my kids to bed and I just go to bed. Like I just like need that. There's some, I mean, obviously each family is going to be different, but there are some like decent, like consistent recommendations that you would like make to most newish parents, I suppose.
Yeah, you know what? I was just speaking with a new mom and a nutritionist a few weeks ago on Instagram Live, and she had sort of a twist on what's really common. And again, you're a parent, so maybe you also think this is bad advice, but I feel like so often people say sleep when the baby sleeps. But we also know that we have a million things going on. Like, who really does that? It's just, again, adding more pressure. But what you just said actually reminded me of something that she said, in that don't necessarily try to sleep like randomly throughout the day when your baby is napping, you know, for 15 minutes or an hour or whatever it is. But if you put the baby down or your kids down around 7:30, maybe you get a nap in there, and it is sort of close to bedtime. You know, we're always kind of worried about, are you napping too late or too long? But again, if you're a parent and you're really needing that extra sleep, I would recommend going to bed when your kid goes to bed, even if you know you're going to be awake again later. If you wake up for, you know, around 9 p.m. for 2 hours or something, that could work out. That could be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak too much on like mothers and like how, you know, wild it is to give birth and then, you know, have this new baby and everything just all over the place. But like in my experience of having two kids and being through 2 pregnancies and being through 2 births, that yeah, I think the sleeping when your baby sleeps is probably a good advice until you recover from the birth. That's such a energy draining experience, even for me.
Yeah.
I wasn't even doing anything. I was just trying to yeah, I was present, I was there, I was in the room. But yeah, like recovering from that certainly would make sense. But yeah, but you know, you've got this like brand new being that's just like come into the world, that's developing at such a wild rate. You wouldn't necessarily want to have the same sleep pattern as that person. There's that little kid for like a year or a couple of years, right? And obviously checking in with your body and checking in with yourself, and making sure that you're able to take care of like all those other things that are very important for your health as well would be important. So that's really good advice. What about the seasonal changes? Because I say this all the time to like some nutrition clients of mine, that if we're going to get more tired during the winter months, you know, like the sun's out less, it's darker more. We're not going to be making as much vitamin D. So we need to be like, you know, we need to be like in like literally a hibernation mode. And I assume, you know, 100,000 years ago when we were living in caves and stuff, that we wouldn't be, you know, trying to do the same things we would do in the summer, which would be, you know, trying to gather food and hunt food and do all these things. We couldn't do that in the winter months, you know, it would be dangerous. So our biology isn't really any different to that of hunter-gatherers. So do you have any decent recommendations for people transitioning into that? I mean, we're deep into it now, like we're in December 15th right now. Like this is like key hibernation stages, but like we have this culture of, you know, we work, we go. We don't really stop, maybe for a few days over Christmas, but like we shouldn't really be expecting to have the same output as we would, let's just say like mid-July.
That is such a good way of saying it and a good perspective. You know, it's one thing to just say, okay, well, seasonal depression time is here, or it's dark now, but to actually give that different perspective and saying, yeah, this exists, but we can also expect to feel different and to act different. Temperature and thermoregulation plays a huge role in sleep. So does light, as you just mentioned. You know, again, it's not a coincidence that we do feel sleepier just in general in the winter, because melatonin, which helps tell our bodies that it's time for sleep, is produced with darkness. And so when we're waking up and it's still dark outside, sometimes that can confuse our brains, for lack of a better phrase. You know, our circadian rhythm feels like we need to be awake when it's light out and we need to be asleep when it's dark out. But again, you know, this modern world, we have the internet and we have lights and indoor and outdoor lights. So sometimes that can be confusing to us. And just knowing that can maybe give you a little bit of comfort in feeling like, okay, this is normal and it is seasonal and hopefully it improves. And then you can just sort of work around it. Light, for example, you can use light therapy. I love like these light glasses that they have out now. You know, you wear them for like 20 minutes. You can go on Amazon and get like a light box. They're probably pretty inexpensive, but especially if you are really dragging in the morning or you do have those seasonal depression bouts, sometimes as something as simple as light therapy can be really helpful. And even though light disrupts melatonin production, it can help reset your circadian rhythm. So if you're doing that light in the morning, for example, it will help sort of reset everything in your brain so that by the time it is time for night and time for bed, your brain might be a little bit better adjusted to knowing that it's time for sleep.
So is it important to get outside like every day and in the morning? What does the kind of research say behind that? Because obviously with the colder, darker days, in comparison to the middle of the summer, like I'm sure the amount of time we spend indoors is like, you know, it's like tenfold. So is it important to get outside and get exposed? I know we're probably not actually making vitamin D with the sunlight, considering how low it's going to be, but there's obviously other benefits to, you know, being outside.
Yeah, definitely. And there are even benefits to being outside on a cloudy day. I mean, you can tell it's pretty gross and disgusting here. I mean, it's actually pretty dark now too, but well, it's raining. Okay, so on a day that it's not actually raining, when it's just like cloudy and overcast, you can still get an unusually high level of light and even help that vitamin D production by going outside versus the inside light. I forget what the number is. I want to say it's like 1,000 times more. I use it like 10 times more. Like it doesn't feel like that much, but again, it's natural. And we were thinking about what our bodies naturally want. So the natural light, especially early in the morning, even if it's on an overcast day, can be super helpful. So like if you can just open your window, maybe you don't want to go outside, it's freezing, open your window, step outside on your balcony for 15 minutes. It can make a huge, huge impact on the way you feel awake and alert. It helps with your serotonin production, that helps with your mood, but also eventually helps with your melatonin production at night. So yeah, that natural light in any way can be super helpful during the day.
Yeah, so we're trying to assist our body's own production, regulation of those necessary neurotransmitters and hormones that are going to support us getting prepared to sleep and also preparing to wake up. Awesome. Yeah, I think the seasonal affective disorder thing is interesting. So I honestly think that that's a normal thing that we're supposed to experience. We are supposed to have less energy. We're supposed to feel more tired. I don't want to say depressed, but like we're not supposed to be out doing the same things we do during the summer, right? So it's like, okay, the body's saying, listen, okay, we've just been hammering it for 6-7 months, been putting you on high alert, you've been going. That's all cool because I've got the sunlight to help me out and I can do all that with everything. But like now it's the winter time. This is when, you know, I want to be a little bit more like a sleepy bear. I just want to like
hibernation mode.
I want to hibernate. I want to stews and broth, really easy to digest foods, and I don't want to have to like go constantly all the time, right? So I think for a lot of people, not everybody, because there's obviously serious disorders out there, but like, I think some level of seasonal affective disorder for everybody is very, very normal. But we equate feeling off as something wrong, as something bad that we have to like take something for or diagnose or label. But yeah, it's just the winter time, man. We're all supposed to just chill out a little bit more and just, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe our bodies are telling us to slow down and we're just fighting it. Maybe we should stop fighting it.
I think less resistance is probably a good thing.
Yeah, probably.
I have a question about temperature when sleeping. I don't like being cold anyway, but I do like cold baths and cold showers and stuff. I think I just more like the personal egotistical male challenge of it all. But
Yeah, probably.
I also know that probably, yeah. I know the health benefits to it as well. So that's cool. But I remember listening to the Dark Horse podcast with Brett Weinstein, and he has on his like sponsorships, he has like this like a cooling blanket where you can adjust the temperatures. And I know that that guy doesn't commit to an ad or a product without knowing everything about it. But I don't know too much about like what like the science is back there. So can you talk to us a little bit about temperature and sleep?
Sure. Yeah. So our body temperature and the temperature in our brain needs to drop just slightly to fall asleep and stay asleep. Now, our body's going to do that on our own, but you can certainly help to optimize it. You know, if you think about someone who is a quote unquote hot sleeper, or maybe you wake up sweating in the middle of the night or in the morning, I mean, that's pretty common, but that's not because your temperature is raised. You know, if you took a thermometer in the middle of the night when you were sweating, you wouldn't have a fever, but you feel hot because your body is giving off heat and it's just being held in by your clothes or your blankets. So something like I'm going to assume it's a chili pad or something like that, a cooling mattress cover can actually really help. And I agree, you know, there are so many products and so much junk out there on the market, especially when it comes to sleep. But something like that can be really helpful because it just helps our body to feel more comfortable. You know, it's not going to instantly drop your core body temperature. It can help you maintain that lower temperature. It can help you maintain the comfort you need to stay asleep. And there are some studies that are showing just more continuity of sleep and even deeper sleep when you do have that maintained lower body temperature. Now, again, it's not like your body temperature is dropping to like 80 degrees or anything like that, but it can drop 0.2 degrees, 0.4 degrees. And so a little bit of cooling can actually make a massive difference because you just need that little tiny bit of change in temperature.
I'm going to have to highlight this little section for my wife who loves the heating on when we sleep. And I don't, because I just get so hot. And it's also like we live in like this semi-desert here and it gets super dry as well. So wake up with a dry mouth and dry
Yeah,
nose.
you know, you could save a little bit of money. You can sleep a little better if you don't turn your heat on as high at night. It's kind of ironic actually because heat is known to comfort people. You know, you want to be like wrapped up in a cozy little blanket. You want to put like the thick, warm socks on. And so we do see studies where you can actually see the reaction in our brains that are stimulating, you know, relaxation and less anxiety and, you know, the drive for sleep. But when we go to sleep, we should maybe take a few of those layers off. We want to help our bodies to actually drop the temperature.
Yeah, I think it's quite abnormal for the human body to be like well fed and warm like all the time. I think that's a very abnormal state for our like more ancient biology.
That's true.
So yeah, it's interesting that the body and brain temperature would need to drop in order to like do the things it needs to keep us asleep and make us fall asleep kind of properly. That's interesting. I'm going to put this to a self-test on the weekend. I'm just going to sneak out and turn the heating off and see what happens.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm not going to propose it because I'll lose that battle. Anyway, I have another question for you. This is awesome. We're just bouncing around here.
I hope.
I've got a couple of so my brother-in-laws, they are 15 and 17. They go to the gym all the time. They are super stacked up. They've got that human growth hormone thing going for them. They're also in the gym 7 days a week. But I also like try to talk to them about how like you don't really grow muscles in the gym. You grow it when you're asleep, right? And that's not really clicked for them yet. Do you think you can talk to us about the importance of sleep, not only for a healthy body building muscle, but also for like teenagers who are going through like a wild hormonal biological phase anyway?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm sure this goes without saying, but there's so much happening in the teenage body and the teenage brain. It's exhausting and they might not realize it. They're living it. You know, it's exhausting for their parents too, I'm sure, but it takes a lot of work for these hormones to be pumping through their body all the time. They're growing, they're learning, they're so active. And if you think about doing some of the things a teenager does, like at an older age, you're like, oh my God, I could never, because it is exhausting. They just happen to be younger and able to keep up with it more. But, you know, if we're talking about the gym, for example, human growth hormone, is released during deep sleep. Of course, it's, you know, released that during wake and sleep and other times too, but it's really pumped out during deep sleep. And you need to be in a good quality deep sleep to get this human growth hormone, which helps us to build and repair muscles. It helps our bones and other tissues and immune system. And it's not that you won't have it if you don't get good sleep, but if you're really trying to build up those teenage muscles, you need to be getting good sleep, and you need to have consistent, deep quality sleep, you know, on a pretty regular basis. And again, just all the growth that's happening in your body needs time to rest and repair. You can't just keep going and going and going, even if you feel like you're not tired. Sleep is, again, it's something that everybody does. It is a biological need, and if it wasn't a need, then, you know, God or a higher power or Mother Nature, whoever really messed up, because we do a lot of sleeping. And so to think of it as just like, you know, an afterthought or not really that important is very counterproductive, because we have to do it and we do it all the time. So there has to be an important need for it, including resting and recovery and growth and building your muscles.
Yeah, for sure. I think the sleep thing with our Western culture is quite interesting, because we obviously have had, you know, we've got light all of the time accessible, and especially like, you know, you live in New York City. Like, when was the last time you saw the starry sky? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, not often.
Not often. Yeah, and it's interesting. I think that the like looking up at imagine our ancestors, like pre-electricity, before that, like, you know, even just a few thousand years ago, they would look up at the sky and they would see this unbelievable, breathtaking cosmos that would just inspire creativity. It would create stories in regards to like the star signs and the gods and all those types of beautiful things, and you would be in a sense of awe every single night, and it would be just a beautiful, wonderful thing to be a part of. And I think we've lost a lot of connection with nature when it comes to that, especially like living in cities and having like the light kind of drowning out that night sky, even on a clear evening. And yeah, it's just an interesting that in our culture we've kind of lost this relationship with the darkness. You know, the darkness is like, you know, it's the yin, it's the calm, it's the quiet, it's the cool, it's something that's obviously a part of our existence, it's a part of our balance. And a lot of people are like scared that we talk about being scared of the dark, and you know, that's
yeah.
It's just interesting that we have this kind of disassociation with nighttime, with the darkness, with the stars, with the cosmos, with nature, which is such a valuable lesson and a teacher, and it's a very humbling teacher.
Right, for such a natural thing, a thing that happens over and over again every single day, every single night. And yeah, we do have this unusual discomfort with it, like, again, fighting it, but you know, resistance is futile.
Well said. Well said. I want to talk about helpful substances to sleep. There's obviously a whole billion-dollar market out there in regards to different products, but obviously we've got Chinese medicine, we've got different herbs, we've got teas, you know, we've even got you know, cannabis and all these types of things that can help support people who struggle to sleep. What have you seen work for people? Because obviously everyone's different.
You know, I could probably talk for like an hour on this, but I'll just get it out of the way first. Alcohol is absolutely the most overused and also the most counterproductive sleep aid in the world. It is a sedative, but it absolutely wrecks the quality of your sleep. So we can talk about that more later if you want. Cannabis is definitely being used more and more, both CBD and indica strands, although as far as what I can tell, the indica strands has definitely more promising results as far as helping with sleep and insomnia and potentially other sleep disorders as well. Although, as we probably all know, the research is a little newer because of all the regulations. You know, teas, supplements, prescription pills, unfortunately, are all very common. I believe that as far as the more natural aids like teas and supplements, they tend to work because they induce a sense of calm and relaxation. You know, there's things like ashwagandha or magnesium, inositol. Wait, am I saying that right? Inositol? That valerian root. These things do have a lot of anecdotal proof, but also some research behind them, and they can absolutely help you relax, which then can help you sleep. So it's not like these things are like knocking you out, but they can help you get into a better mindset for sleep. I do believe in that. And especially when you pair these things with a routine. So, you know, you don't just drink your chamomile tea and hop in bed and instantly fall asleep. Maybe you take some time to wind down and you're drinking your tea, and then you do, you know, a 5-minute routine or a, I don't know, 2 minutes of breath work. So when you pair one of these supplements or these teas or what have you with your routine, I think it can have really, really great benefits to your sleep.
Yeah, I love the routine aspect of that because, yeah, I think it's so important and so valuable that we have like transitions within our day, like from waking up to going to work, you know, like that shouldn't be this like horrible rushed mixed process where we're like eating breakfast on the subway or in the car on the way. Like it's such a bad habit to have. And the same should be said for sleep, you know, like there should be a clear time frame that's probably at least 30 minutes long where you are, you know, preparing your psychological self, your physiological self for sleep, whether that's with, yeah, going to make some tea, having a bath, reading a book, you know, doing everything that's literally slowing your body down, particularly your brain waves, going from this like high beta phase to, you know, it's like a theta data phase where you're certainly slowing down your brain waves a little bit, so your body's recognizing that, oh, okay, there's some external output. This is a message that's telling me that, okay, we're going to need to prepare for sleep now. Okay, guys, let's start making the melatonin. Let's start making all these things and preparing us to get down for the day, rather than like, yeah, like watching TV until like midnight, having like 4 or 5 drinks and then collapsing asleep. Like that, you might fall asleep really well, but like it's like you're more like collapsing asleep rather than falling asleep. So, yeah, it's just, I love the idea of using stuff like inositol and other herbs and supplements that have much more of like a subtle, well-rounded effect rather than like a sleeping pill or something that's just like super harsh, super direct, like trying to use a grenade to, you know, do something that needs to be more subtle.
Yeah. And I mean, sleeping pills absolutely have their place. I was listening to a podcast with Dr. Chris Winter, a neurologist, a sleep physician who has decades of experience with patients on sleeping pills. And he makes some really good points. The first being that, you know, why do you want to be on a sleeping pill? I'm not saying that they're all bad or that people don't need it, but if you think about why you want to be on a sleeping pill, first of all, they're only meant to be prescribed for temporary use. So if you are having a really bad bout of insomnia, or maybe you're grieving and your mind is racing, or, you know, maybe you had, unfortunately, something really bad happen in your life and you're just struggling with sleep. Of course, we can understand why you might want a prescription to help you, and those are there to help you. But there are very few, if any, studies that prove that people feel better the day after. So what are you really gaining or giving up? So if you're not more productive, if you're not happier, if you're not feeling well rested, but you got that sleep that you felt like you really needed, you know, how important are those sleeping pills? Or maybe you only need to be on them for a few weeks, or again, talk to your doctor about it, but they are so strong and they're just knocking us out. They're not getting us into a natural sleep. So we really need to think about that when we are taking and asking for these prescription pills, which are given out so easily here.
Yeah, that's a huge point. Thanks for bringing that to our attention, that, you know, a lot of medications have their place. And, you know, for a lot of people who are obviously suffering, it could be the absolute relief that they need. But are we going to the extent, like as a physician, are we telling individuals that this is certainly not a long-term solution to sleep? You know, this is like a, you know, maybe for a few days or a week, just to make sure that you're giving your body the necessary sleep it needs to be able to do its like foundational repair and restoration. Yeah, that's a huge point. So thank you for saying that. Tell me about alcohol then. Why is it so bad?
Oh, it's awful. Well, okay. I think that we probably all, or a lot of people, have had alcohol and you feel more relaxed, and maybe you have drank too much and you pass out. So that would make us think that alcohol helps with sleep. I mean, it seems very obvious that it would help with sleep, right? You're literally falling asleep because you drank too much. But the problem is what it does in our brain. And that is counterproductive for sleep. It messes with our sleep architecture, which is basically the different stages of your brain. So what alcohol will do, if you're only drinking every now and then, alcohol might actually, and don't harp on this too much, but might actually help with some deep sleep. But that's like literally the only good benefit, and it is fleeting. After that, it will reduce your REM sleep. And what happens when you reduce your REM sleep is that you feel like garbage the next day, not to mention the hangover. But if you're not getting REM sleep, you're not getting emotional processing, you're not getting memory consolidation and moving things from short-term memory to long-term memory. And you will wake up a lot more frequently. Maybe you're not even getting into that deep sleep anymore. Your brain gets very confused as it's processing the alcohol. And once that alcohol wears off, we then tend to see this rebound effect. So usually very early in the morning, or if you are lucky enough to get a nap after a night of drinking, you'll have these really crazy dreams. And so again, people might think that signifies you're getting great sleep, but it's really your body saying, oh my God, we got such awful sleep before. Let's rush and get into this REM sleep now and try to make up for it. But you can't really make up for it. Your body is trying, your brain is incredible. It is trying, but it's just really confused when you drink that alcohol and it processes, not to mention it's a diuretic. So you might be using the bathroom more often. And again, the hangover in and of itself is probably uncomfortable, but yeah, I mean, it's not a good sleep aid. Again, why are you using it would really be the question that you need to think about. If you love it, if you want to drink wine every night, I'm not going to tell you not to, but maybe you have it earlier in the day. Maybe you have it with dinner and you only have one glass. I would absolutely never recommend a nightcap or drinking right before bed because you think it's going to help you sleep, because the answer is it's not.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever known anyone that has like struggled to sleep and then they would have a drink to help them do it. It's obviously a thing that happens, but I just don't know of anybody who would do that. I just know people who just like, end of the day, kids are asleep, you've had your dinner, let's have some drinks, like that's more of a, I don't want to say that's a better habit, but it's, obviously alcohol just wreaks havoc on every part of the body, and, getting into a consistent habit of having a few drinks every night is just that's not healthy at all. There's no application for that. And I always found it interesting when I studied Chinese medicine that the like 3 to 4 o'clock, 3 to 5 o'clock in the morning was like the liver's time to shine and then to do its thing. And most people who had a bit of a drinking issue on the weekends or even throughout the week would wake up during that time when the liver is like having to work extra hard, having to go through its like 3-stage detoxification process to kind of like get rid of that alcohol and get it out of the body. And yeah, like having to pee more and having more breaks in the sleep cycle is just like it's just going to wreak havoc. And I don't know how much of a hangover is just poor sleep and sleep deprivation, and like you're probably going to bed late anyway, so it just all totally adds up. And yeah, it's a wild thing. I don't drink in the winter because I don't have any real craving for like a drink in the winter time. Like I don't like putting cold stuff in my my body that's cold. I don't have that craving, luckily, because I have a lot of people that have no problem with that, which is fine. But I like having a cider after a soccer game in the summer, like that's much more appealing to me.
That's true.
Yeah So it's I feel I'm quite lucky with that. But yeah, a lot of people like it kind of blows my mind that alcohol is so freely accepted in our society when we know it is as like probably is worse than smoking. And even smoking still like it's questionable that smoking should still be legal.
I know. I saw a list of who knows how many, I'll just say 30 substances and how bad they are for you, basically. And alcohol was at the top. And I feel like cannabis wasn't even till like the second page. Mushrooms was like the very last thing on the list. And it's like, we kind of all know this, but because it's very accepted in our society, we just kind of like forget about it. But that's pretty bad.
It's really bad, and yeah, it's obviously been decades and decades, and there's lobbying and tax stuff that goes into it. It's big money. Some of the biggest corporate companies in the world, obviously, are alcohol companies, tobacco companies, and even with the outstanding evidence, and everyone knows that drinking is not very good for you, but we don't really talk about the addictive qualities of something like that, the habitual things that go on with that as well, and it ends up being a crux for a lot of people. And the fact that you can, in most countries, get alcohol 24/7. You can even just like go onto like DoorDash or Skip the Dishes and get alcohol sent with your pizza these days. Like that's too easy. Like that's too easy to just slip into a bad habit and be a big crux on the health system. Like, I don't know, I'm just not too sure we should be in that type of a dire state in 2022. But again, that's a separate podcast, Teresa.
Right, exactly. I mean, I did see something even where they had patients who did drink regularly and they felt like they were drinking to help them sleep. And so then they would wake up the next day, and over time, as they built that tolerance to the alcohol, I believe those people had, an issue with alcohol, although I don't remember exactly what's happening in the study, but they were building a tolerance to the alcohol. So slowly they would feel less hungover, but they would still be so incredibly sleepy. And later in the day, they would feel pretty bad. Yeah. And so they would then think, oh, I guess I have to drink more alcohol to sleep better and to counteract this. And it seemed just so crazy to me, but it's not, because they don't know. Nobody told them how not to do that. Or maybe someone told them, but they didn't understand, or maybe they don't care. Maybe they do have that addiction, but it is interesting what people really do, especially, and again, if you're not getting good sleep, maybe your logical part of your brain isn't that active. I don't know. But yeah, it's funny. Those people actually chose to drink more because they were feeling bad, but they were probably feeling bad because their sleep was bad.
Yeah, it's a vicious circle, and obviously there's so much that goes into a healthy body and looking at health span and lifespan, and sleep is just one huge aspect of that. And yeah, it's a holistic wheel, that's for sure. I've got so many questions for you, but I want to ask you about like sleep disruption, cell phones, because I think, I don't know, 9 out of 10 people probably have their phone within a meter of their precious brain's precious body, which we are electromagnetic beings, and any type of electrical signal is going to affect that for sure. What's the research on like EMFs and sleep?
I have been looking into this a lot more lately, especially because a lot of us have those sleep trackers. I do work on the clinical side in monitoring patients who are being treated for sleep apnea, and a lot of these things have Bluetooth built into them. So as you know, our devices emit electrical fields, especially when we're using Bluetooth, and even when they're turned off, it seems. Now, when we look at EEG or brainwaves in a sleep study, they don't seem to really be affected that much, or at least not significantly, by the EMFs. So that's good news. But strong and extended exposure to EMF has been shown to disrupt neuroendocrine processes, so brain and hormones. I've seen some research that shows that the effects of EMF are more harmful when we're sleeping than when we're awake. This is possibly due to, the complex cascade of physiological events that are going on in our brains while we're sleeping. We're not really protected from the outside world. And we're also releasing that melatonin in the dark when we're sleeping. And a melatonin is a hormone, which I just mentioned is one of the things that might be disrupted by these EMFs. So this might affect sleep. It might affect immune function, cell repair. I'm not an expert in EMFs, and I didn't participate in any of the research I just mentioned, but I know there is a ton of information out there. A lot of it is very unsubstantiated, but that's not to say it's not true. I just feel like there needs to be more research. Personally, to what you just said, I don't sleep with my phone by my bed. I mean, I do it for a few other reasons too, but I am aware of it. So I won't sleep with my phone by my bed. I don't typically recommend like those Bluetooth like headbands that you sleep with, unless somebody's asking for one, then I'll tell them one that I like. But I do try to avoid it. I feel like it can't hurt to avoid it as much as possible. Although I think it really has to do with the strength and how long you're exposed to it. I would avoid it if you could.
Yeah, obviously you've got the aspect of like being exposed to that light. You've got the distance, you know, strain on your eyes, for example, and just the habit of like, you know, maybe looking at your phone for an hour before
Right.
bed. And like the first thing you do when you wake up, you know, we're talking about transitions, you know, that's probably not the best thing is to just flick your phone on and check your social media right away. Like it's probably not the best thing for your mental health. And yeah, I go back to the whole caveman thing. It's just like I'm sure a huge part of our biological process for going to sleep is connected to darkness, quiet, sensory deprivation, literally sensory deprivation, and then also just like like, I mean, we wouldn't have had like electronics around us, but obviously the earth is an electromagnetic field as well, so we're not completely foreign to those type of things, but it's just like how much and how frequently. So I think as much quiet as literal quiet, whether that's like actually like from hearing and actual like the energetic quiet, the better we're going to be when we sleep, I think.
Yeah, and you know, like you're saying about things being natural, we have complicated so many things in our life, and a lot of times for the better. You know, of course, I'm on electronics right now. I have my phone like 4 feet away from me. I know that we need it, and it really improves our lives. But when it comes to something as simple as sleep, we are looking for all these gadgets and all these things and all these trackers, and maybe we just need to simplify it a little bit. Maybe we just need to put them away from our bed for a little while. And, you know, along with all the habits that we do or don't do in the bedroom as well, which can help you sleep. So I don't know exactly how much EMFs are bad for your sleep. I know that your brain waves seem to be in good shape, but it is like that hormone disruption that I do worry about. So if you can avoid it, I would.
So if everyone's putting their phone away on the bedside, there's no phones on the bedside table anymore after our discussion. So what's an ideal bedside table situation?
Ooh, that's a good question. If you read, I would definitely put a book by your bedside table, maybe a few, because if you are someone who gets up in the middle of the night and maybe has trouble falling asleep, maybe you want to read something, but particularly maybe something that you've already read, so it's not as exciting or stimulating to you. I really love smart alarm clocks. Some of those do have Bluetooth, so try not to put them directly by your bed, but to help you wake up in a more natural way, like I like to recommend the Lofty, or it's very similar to the Hatch, where it will wake you up with different sounds or tones. The Lofty, for example, actually wakes me up once very quietly, and I honestly don't even notice sometimes, and then it will wake me up a few minutes later. So I feel like I just naturally woke up versus like a blaring alarm clock or like my phone alarm clock, which I feel like people get like really traumatized by. Like every time I hear the sound, I'm like cringing. So things like that, you know, a noise machine, maybe a sleep mask if it's not very dark in your room, simple things that are not stimulating electronics, not your phone, not your iPad, things like that.
Beautiful. Great recommendations. Teresa, you're awesome. Thank you so much for coming onto the show again. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I feel like we covered so many things. I hope I didn't talk your ear off too much, but I love chatting about sleep and health and all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's so important to talk about, and it's just a good reminder for people. People just like with their own busy lives, we just forget about these things. Like something that we just like all do every night on a consistent basis. Sometimes we just doesn't get the attention it deserves because we just always do it, right? It's just something that we'll always do, and obviously having the quality is very, very important as well. And yeah, it's just important that we have these conversations, just remind everyone a little bit, like, you know, like if you're feeling that little bit extra tired, a little bit extra fatigued, then, you know, maybe we should just like have a really good week's sleep, focus on that, and I'm sure you're going to feel a lot better for it.
Absolutely. I agree.
Great. We're in agreement. That's wonderful. Well, thank you again for coming onto the show, Teresa. How can people get hold of you?
Primarily, I do a ton of posting on Instagram. I have some help, but I do read all the DMs and the comments. My Instagram is at @SleepBetterNYC, no dots or spaces. If you have any questions or you want to see the kind of products we offer or the programs you can do to just help yourself, or if you are a patient with a sleep disorder, all of that information can be found on our website, which is sleepbetter.nyc. So it's not .com, it's .nyc.
All right. That's awesome. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Well, that is it for this episode of True Hope Podcast, the official podcast of True Hope Canada. We'll see you next week. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet. You can leave us a review if you feel like doing that. But that's it. We'll see you soon.